So you may have remembered that I talked about a new supplement called Get Dopa. Now, I have now been taking Get Dopa for about 3 months now, every single day. And I have to say, I'm very excited that I'm bringing them back as a sponsor for the podcast because it works. Get Dopa has combined lots of the different supplements I was taking and just put them into one. So it's only 3 supplement tablets a day. And these combined are 16 powerful nootropic ingredients in the one smart supplement. It's really clever. And it's been created by a neurodivergent person. His name is Matt Buff. I've chatted to him and he's so passionate in helping neurodivergent brains thrive, feel regulated, less anxious, more clarity. And I have to say, I have really been surprised by the impact that Get Dopa has had on my working day, feeling much more calm. My memory, my energy, my cognition, my focus, my mood has been significantly improved. I've just felt like a better version of me taking Get Dopa. So I really wanted to be able to share this with you. Now, many of you have messaged me to say that you have bought it using the code, which is Kate10, and you have also noticed a difference. Now, you can take Get Dopa alongside medication or instead of medication if medication is not for you. And it has been celebrated by many different lifestyle medicine practitioners. Also, Dr. Rachel Gow, who is a nutritional neuroscientist who I've worked with, who is on the podcast, is also part of my ADHD Women's Wellbeing Hormone series. And also Sarah Osborne, who is also an ADHD nutritionist. And they're all saying the same thing, that the fantastic, unique formulation, which is incorporating a blend of ingredients renowned for their cognitive, energy boosting and mood enhancing properties, is a fantastic supplement for ADHD. So I want you to have a look on the show notes or go to the link. It's getdopa.com. And if you use my discount Kate10, you'll get a 10% discount. Head to getdopa.com, put in my discount code, and that should give you an opportunity to buy it at a slightly lower rate. I hope it really helps you. And please do message and let me know. We'd love to hear. Okay, now back to today's episode. Welcome to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Podcast. I'm Kate Moore Youssef, and I'm a wellbeing and lifestyle coach, EFT practitioner, mum to 4 kids, and passionate about helping more women to understand and accept their amazing ADHD brains. After speaking to many women just like me and probably you, I know there is a need for more health and lifestyle support for women newly diagnosed with ADHD. In these conversations, you'll learn from insightful guests, hear new findings, and discover powerful perspectives and lifestyle tools to enable you to live your most fulfilled, calm, and purposeful life wherever you are on your ADHD journey. Here's today's episode. So hi everyone, welcome back to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Podcast. And today we have Louise Gooding. Now, Louise Gooding is a children's author, writing non-fiction and picture books for all ages to enjoy. And Louise has a keen interest in sharing stories that feature characters that stand out, are different, and have something to say. And these stories have been inspired from her own experiences, and she took up writing to sensitive issues within children's books, such as disability, neurodiversity, and mental health. And these amazing books include The Memory Book, Just Like Me, and Wonderfully Wired Brains, which I have in front of me and absolutely adore, and I can't wait to talk about. And I'm just absolutely delighted to have you here because I feel like we've got lots to cover. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely. I've been following you for ages, so it's been lovely to be now a part of this, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love speaking to people who have had their diagnoses later on in life. I know you were telling me before that it was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're channeling all of that energy and all that sort of creativity, but for a purpose and trying to help more children. And I just wondered, with regards to the books that you've written, The Memory Book and Just Like Me, which were before Wonderfully Wired Brains, had you had your diagnosis then?
I had just had my diagnosis when I started writing. I think I wrote something similar to The Memory Book, was my first ever book, because, whilst I was helping my daughter who had her diagnosis of ADHD, I was also kind of sort of going through that whole journey with my grandmother, with her dementia journey. And she was an educator, and she was always like, children should read, whether it's the back of a receipt or a newspaper clipping, whatever it is, all children should have access to reading. And if they can't, they should be read to. She worked in special needs as well. She was just a lovely person. So I wanted to write about dementia. That was basically what started me. It wasn't anything inspired by my diagnosis or my daughter's diagnosis. I wasn't even thinking about that at the time. It was focused on, obviously, my grandma's journey. And I went to a children's writers conference with this book under my arm, feeling ridiculously confident, with no experience at all of writing children's books. I think that's the ADHD of like impulsiveness, of like, I've got this. This is amazing. But yeah, I went to this conference and someone was doing a talk on language we use and being careful and mindful of the different sort of languages we use around different people and different groups. But this person kept on slipping up and going like, oh, that person's mental, or they're mad, or, and I was like, so we're really careful about language, apart from when it includes maybe neurodiverse experiences or people with mental health experiences. And obviously I didn't say anything because I'm just a sort of a nobody in the audience. But I kind of went home with that, I guess, fire of like, we talk about inclusive language all the time, and she's talking about, obviously, for disabled people, please do not say, oh, that's blinded me, or, any of the, please, and I understand, I totally agree, inclusive language all the way through. But when it comes to the brain and mental health and neurodiversity, there was still this sort of stigma of like forgotten group of people. So that kind of what lit the fire for me to go, okay, I need to find a space for this. I need to find a space to talk about that. And where do I start? And that's kind of, I went into a deep dive of, what sort of other neurodivergent people are out there doing things, which were amazing, sort of like game changers around the world. And, whilst I was looking into, neurodiverse people, I was thinking, well, hold on, I also live with chronic back pain. I've got a degenerative disc issue in my spine, so I have a lot of pain. And I was like, well, there's more to just me than the neurodiversity. I do understand, some of the disability link, which was also missing, which is why I wanted to write Just Like Me, because how often do children sit there and go, who was out there like me? That I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone like me anywhere. And when they do, they're sort of like caricatures of who we are, if that makes any sense. I just felt I really connected with that as with a story, if that makes sense, of where's the positive representation? How can we stop looking at people and going, despite their, because there's more to us all, whether we're disabled, physically diverse. And I say that, because obviously we've got visible skin differences, just differences, and no one really talks about it. And again, I think there's an amazing person who's actually in my books. This is where my brain, I said, will go off. I've forgotten his surname, Adam. And he works for, I think, Faces for Change. I think I can't. This is when my brain switches off. I'm really sorry, everyone. This is live ADHD. My brain just goes, you know what you want to say, but we're just going to withhold that information from you.
Yeah, the processing situation. Know it well.
I'm always very like, this is me. Sorry. Anyways, I have to look him up in a second and just check his name, because he really is worth a mention, because he does some amazing work for people with visible differences and saying, look, stop using us as the villains. Stop using us, our community, for children in need adverts. He does some amazing work. He calls himself God's favorite disabled person. He's hilarious. I love him. But yeah, there's some amazing people, and that's what I said. Why I started. Adam Pearson.
Oh, Adam Pearson. Yes, I know exactly who you mean. He's fantastic. He's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, because what you've created in Wonderfully Wide Brains, which is I've got in front of me, is the most beautiful book. And it's so easy to read, understand. It's colour, it's full of amazing illustrations. But what you've really hit on is all the little things that are really hard to explain to other people. And so you could literally hand this book to someone, a grandparent, partner, sibling, teacher, and just say, here's what's going on, and here's what you need to understand. And I have read a lot of books. And this, I have to say, explains so much in such a concise, clear, practical, imaginative way that I just love it. Absolutely love it. You've got a glossary, you've got ways to understand, you've got help, you've got people, celebrities, people from history, understanding tics, with Tourette's syndrome. And I love it when you talk about bipolar, OCD, anxiety, depression, sleep, but this is all through the lens of children. The processing disorder one is the pages are just fantastic because you talk about the funny phrases and getting sort of metaphors and jokes mixed up, which has been the running joke of my life. Like my dad has consistently laughed at me and mocked me because I can never get the phrase right, or I'll tell a joke and I'll miss the punchline, or I'll try and tell a story and the story won't come out correctly. And I'll be like, oh, do you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to tell the story. And so this book has sort of really helped me understand how certain things have showed up for me, even though I thought I knew lots about neurodiversity. So, and you've got synesthesia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. It's fabulous, and I can't wait for my kids to, properly read it, because this book should be in every library in school, and it should be every family that has got neurodiversity in there. It should be there on the kitchen table, a glossary ready for people to just, dive in, because my issue is that the generation behind us, like grandparent generation, are very dismissive about all these complexities and nuances, and they kind of just brush things aside. And actually, if you don't have the mental energy, and let's face it, there's a lot of mental energy there to advocate for neurodiversity. We see it in the media, we see it everywhere, that if you don't understand, it's so exhausting. And actually, sometimes you just think, I can't be bothered. But a book like this breaks down those gaps. See, you go there. I can't remember the phrase.
Right.
Breaks down the.
It's funny. I think maybe Dr. Seuss also. That's why he came up with these words. He couldn't think of the word he wanted, so he just made things up. Possibly. When you've got people who don't understand and you're trying. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I bought a lot of books as well about neurodiversity, and I just found them so unfriendly because I'm like, this is just so much information being thrown at me in block heavy text, loads of data. I don't know what to do with that. Like, it would go in one ear and out the other. It would not stay with me. And I really struggled with that. And I mean, I guess, again, this is another reason I was already finding bits of information and shouting at them at people. So just, I guess, gathering them and putting them into a book made sense for me, because where do you go? There's so many resources available, but they're not all clubbed together, or they're a bit here, or you think you found the resource, then you find that they're linked to maybe not such a great organization. That's the other thing which sometimes happens. It's really difficult, I think, to know that you're getting the right information. So that was something really important to me, that people could pick up a book, and yes, it's targeted, as you just pointed out, it's targeted at kids from 7 plus. I think it's for everybody. Personally, it's your basic, easy to read guide, what's going on, and it breaks it down to just the beginner's level. Like, I mean, I made such a point of, when I first wrote this as a proposal, I had the animal bit in there. It was so important for me to talk about diversity and brain diversity. Let's not even talk about humans. Let's just go bigger than that. Let's look at how diverse, even in the animal kingdom, our brains are. Like, and that again brings in kids, brings in people to go, well, hold on, yes, like, there is some sort of changes, there are some differences. So obviously, I hope to like bring that just down to the basics, so everybody could feel confident and proud of their brain, because this was the thing. Like, someone might pick up this book and go, well, this book's not relevant to me because I don't have a diagnosis of I'm not autistic and I don't have ADHD. It doesn't matter. Have you ever felt low in your life? Have you ever suffered from insomnia? Have you ever had moments where things have been difficult? It does talk in there about mental health. And I think everyone can relate to that. Everyone can find something in this book that they relate to, whether you're neurodiverse or not. I think everyone's neurodiverse. That's what I sort of covered in the book. Everyone is neurodiverse, but whether you're neurodivergent or not, I hope that people look at this and learn something, and realize that, the way they're made up is special and unique to them.
What I love, the fact that you included the history and really understanding, how it showed up in Egyptian times, and how, you've got the timeline here back from the 1600s to even 400 BCE, 700 BCE, of just how it all shows up and all the historical figures. And I just love it. And like you say, it's a celebration of brains, it's a celebration of difference. And when we can move past this stigma, and we can move past the I'm only this or I'm only that, and actually realize that there's this spectrum of going on, and where Tourette's can interplay with OCD, and anxiety can interplay with ADHD and dysgraphia and dyscalculia. And for people to understand that, we don't have to have all these labels, but to have a recognition and compassion and acceptance that it's there. But also, just for me, just that moment when I read about the processing, and it made me laugh about, me sort of messing up all my metaphors and analogies. It's kind of like, okay, it's not me just being like a bit silly and ditzy. There's actually a processing thing of working memory and, mixing language together. And I've still got a podcast. And what you were saying before is, sometimes, with your working memory, just things just disappear. And I said, you've written all these books. And so for you your brain is incredible. And for you to just sort of have a moment where your working memory sort of, takes over, for you to feel like, I think you used the word a bit, what did you use? My brain's a little bit.
Rubbish. I think it's,
Yeah.
the funny thing is, and as I said to you, like, I get more anxiety about it around adults than I do with children. Like, adults, I always feel like I have to be an adult, I guess, or I have to have it together. Everyone, I think this is a really good thing with ADHDers as well. Sometimes we're really good at looking like we've got everything together, but we really don't. Like, everything's fire behind us and we're still smiling and it's like, hey, we're fine. Because I think for me, I really am authentically me when I go into a school or online workshop, because it's so important. Because when I was at school, I was the A student when it came to presentations. I could present anything. I could talk the legs of a hind donkey off of anything when I was excited and interested in it. Put me in an exam situation and I failed and I flunked and I just couldn't do it. And I always assumed that meant I'll be quite honest, I assumed it meant I had no future. I assumed it meant that I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And I always fancied being a teacher, because put me in front of kids, I come alive. I like educating. I love history. I love, it's why I put history in this, because I was like, let me talk about history, because it's a passion of mine. But I failed because I could not do the exams. So that door felt like it was forever shut to me, if that made sense. And when I discovered writing, I said I didn't have a great idea. I just spontaneously was like, well, let's see where this goes and let's see what happens. And I've kind of discovered that I'm actually being an educator. I'm doing what I always wanted to do. And I just did it in my way, in a way that works with my brain. And that is my massive message to kids, because I thought that I would never get to be an educator because my working memory wouldn't allow me to sit exams. But I am an educator. And I think that's so important. I want kids to sit there who are maybe like me, or maybe worried that I could never be an author. My spelling's all over the place. I can't spell. And sometimes I've even put up slides of like, this is me when I write a draft. How many spelling mistakes? Or my brain is faster than my fingers. And look at this. And they were all like, but you're an author. You shouldn't. And I'm like, no, like, please, and that's why, again, it was important to include, Kerry Burnell in Wonderfully Wired Brains. She's a very successful children's author now and children's television presenter previously. And she, she's dyslexic. So she's having to learn lines and reading and writing is a huge part of her world. And I want kids to be like, oh, okay, like that's not a shut door to me then. This is not.
Yeah.
Um,
We're so lucky in this day and age to have things like spell check and Grammarly and all these things. Like you say, I'm exactly the same. I don't think I've got dyslexia, but I know that there's dyscalculia and probably dysgraphia going on. But I'm the same as you. When I write my first draft, it is just just like everything that I can possibly get out.
Yeah.
And I read back, and then I just thank God that I've got some, some software that can help tidy it all up. And I just think, we're lucky now that that shouldn't have to stop us, that the stuff that goes on in our brains and what comes out onto paper is not our worth. And we can always get help. We can have an editor. We can find someone that is good at that, and we can collaborate with them.
I mean,
I'm
Google
actually,
Docs is amazing. Google Docs has
yes.
so much of my, did you mean to write this sentence like this? And I was like, no, that's yeah, there's so much. I think there's lots of adults who probably had a bit of a tough time, and I think, and I'm going to just speak out here and say, I think we're grateful that technology has changed. We're grateful that our kids have got so much better access to understanding and tools. But I do feel that there carries a little bit of that almost inner sadness of what could I have done? I think so many adults carry that now. Like, I wish that was available to me, or what more could I have achieved if only I'd had, and I sometimes have to remind myself not to sit there and like feel sad about when I didn't understand, because I still achieved loads of different amazing things and I can't look back and feel sad about it. But I think a lot of adults, sometimes there is that slight sadness of, oh, I wish I had that. So many adults have said, I wish that this book was available. And I'm like, me too. That's why I wrote it. Like but I just hope that it helps the next generations. And I think we, having been through I guess it is a bit of trauma, the trauma of not getting that support or help, just kind of lights a fire under us, I think, really, to say, look, no, we don't want it anymore for us, and we definitely don't want it for the next generation. So it's really important that, and it sounds horrible, but it's important that sometimes people go through the pain of having those experiences without the understanding and support, so they can do it's a real mental toll, and it shouldn't have ever happened to anyone, but it's unfortunately, I think, how it is. And I just hope that, I guess, our generation just really looks after the next to make sure that they don't have to go through that, well, what if, or if only I had access to.
Just a quick reminder that I have built a library resource on the website, which is adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk. And I am creating a hub for you to be able to look for all different types of resources, online workshops. I've got the hormone series, which has now been broken down into individual workshops, which range from thriving with ADHD post-diagnosis, how to avoid burnout. I've got something called the ADHD Holistic Starter Kit, which is 3 workshops in one. I've got things about managing your ADHD nervous system and a 3-hour tapping into your ADHD Gold workshop. I am trying so hard to curate a list of different workshops. So when you are not getting the help and the support you want from maybe resources locally, that you're able to go onto the website and really find what resonates with you right here, right now. It's all there. And I've tried to make this as accessible, as cost effective as possible for you, because this is all about awareness, empowering, helping you advocate for yourself and get the information that you all deserve. So it's all there on my website, adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk. Now back to the episode. I mean, I hear a lot from women like you and me who've got children with different, things going on, neurodivergence, and I've got 2 diagnosed, 1 on the way, and I am just the biggest advocate for helping them and helping them see how brilliant their brains are, and really leaning into all their strengths and really helping them, getting the support and speaking to teachers and sending books to the SEND department, and just making sure, because this is what I wish I'd had. This is what, I wish I'd had teachers that could spot certain things, my parents that could see where the difficulties were, all the masking that went on, the exhaustion of not quite being able to live up to what I thought there was this potential inside me. I could never quite get to it. And yeah, we're playing catch up. And the fact that you've already published 3 incredible books in the space of time that you have had your diagnosis is unbelievable. So is it 5 or 6 years you've published 3 books and you got your diagnosis around? Yeah. So
Yeah,
what were you doing? So tell me a little bit about life before, pre-diagnosis, pre-writing books. What was going on for you?
I guess I always joke to you, I'm like the stereotypical like poster girl of like trying to find herself. Um, I had a million and one hobbies. I never stuck with anything. I was always trying to find the thing that would be my thing. Uh, my partner at the time was always like, you have a craft room, Louise. I had a craft room of all of the like the hobbies I had started and then got bored. But I'm
Yeah, know this one well.
sell it and it's going to be great. I'm going to be an artist. No, I'm not. I'm going to be this or I'm going to do that. Um, I just didn't know. And as I said, because for me, especially, I really struggled. I was kind of scared of education and going back into it. I'm quite open about that because I just felt it was inaccessible and I didn't know why. Now I do. As I said, I went back out. It was last year that I went and had further diagnosis and help for why was I still struggling? Like, why was I unable to access things? I couldn't, having an ADHD diagnosis was great, but where were my strengths and weaknesses? Like, really, I wanted to know more. And they
How
told
did you do that? Who did you do that through?
so I went through. I was in Switzerland at the time, and I was at a clinic there because I'll be honest, I was having a bit of a mental health breakdown with, my daughter was not having particularly great access to help and support in the Swiss education system. I don't think it's all over everywhere, but where we lived, especially, it was not great. And I was, as I said, talking about that trauma thing. I I really struggled watching her go through that. And I basically was trying to then obviously keep up with, my work, my writing. And I would be like, but I'm, sometimes I do things and I forget, or, I should be doing more and I want to now go and study this, but I don't know how I go and study this because I'm obviously capable, but I just can't unlock something in my brain. And so I went to this clinic and they were fantastic. And I saw an ADHD specialist who basically said your working memory is really not great. It's you have a learning disability because you just don't, unless she worked out if it was done a specific way, I'm good, and I'm a practical person. Show me with movement and things, and that I retain things. Asking me to repeat numbers, if you said to me now 6 numbers in a row, I'd probably remember 2 of them. I just literally can't. My brain just freaks out. And that was my whole thing of like, I want to go back to education, but I don't know again, is it something, I said I was scared before, and I was scared now to do it. So that's why I went and had this clinic, diagnosis to say, is it a possibility, or is there something stopping me, or is it just me stopping me because of past experiences in my school life? So getting that was really really helpful. But yeah, beforehand it was, I was just doing a bit of everything. I was a children's entertainer for 3 years, which I absolutely loved. That worked really well with my personality. Bouncing around and different themes every week. I got told, I think 3 days notice, that I was going to be on an international radio show, which I knew. I was helping organize the Children's Day, and originally I was told, "Oh, you've got 1 hour on the radio." I'd never been on radio before. A broadcast live, I don't care, it's fine. And then they said, "Okay, someone's pulled out. Would you mind doing 3 hours?" And this is, and I was on air around the world for 3 hours. Like, no problem at all. But and these are experiences I think where I've enjoyed. I've discovered bits about myself, which I'm always creative. I'm always interested in being crafty. I'm always interested in working with kids. So I guess everything I've done beforehand, I always say, has kind of led me to this moment of discovering, well, being a writer is the most creative thing you can do. I always send doodles. I love doodling. My poor illustrators, I'm like, what about this? Like, and I'm trying not to tread on their toes because you shouldn't do that with illustrators. But you talk about the processing thing when I say about the cat out the bag. I mean, I sent that in with an illustration of a cat in a bag. Like I'm always doodling because that's how my brain works like that. And even the introduction page where you see me in my dungarees, that's actually from an illustration I sent the publishers to say, this is me, this is who I am. And they gave that illustration to the illustrator to say, can you incorporate Louisa's energy into her introduction page with her magpie, with her squirrels, with her fog? Can you do that? So yeah, I guess all of the things I've done beforehand have always led me, yeah, to where I am now, and I feel comfortable where I am now. But I tried everything. I was never sure where I was going to be or what I was going to do. I was always
I,
what? What is that?
I'm just looking now at the introduction page, and I love it. Absolutely, they've really captured your energy. I hear this all the time of women who spend pretty much their whole life soul searching and looking, why can't I just stick at something? Why can't I just find my thing? And we berate ourselves and we sort of, it's like, well, why can't I just do it and stay put? And then we get this diagnosis and it's kind of like, okay. And it's a lot more acceptance. And then you start leaning into that creativity. And what's interesting, I can hear you saying that all the things kind of just that you'd been doing was building up. And then maybe that diagnosis just gave you that full permission to kind of go, I'm just going to do the thing. I'm going to write the books. I also hear a lot of people with ADHD, they love writing. I mean, I also love writing and they have lots of incredible ideas. But you went from having the ideas, writing proposal. How did you get over the finishing line? Like, how's that? Did you get an agent? Like, did you send it out to publishers? How did it work?
It really is an ADHD naivety, spontaneity, just go for it
Mm-hmm.
attitude. I had a friend when I was like, I put together this proposal, and she'd been writing for years. She was very nice and very supportive. And she's like, yeah, but Louise, just remember, I've been doing this for many, 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 many years, and it doesn't just happen overnight. And just be aware. And I think I sent it to only 3 agents. I didn't realize you were meant to send it to like about 200, and I'm not the person to follow everyone. People need to understand that this does not happen ever. But I sent the Just Like Me proposal to my agency and Madeline Milburn, and the agency just picked it up and said there's nothing out there like this at the time. And they were interested in what I had to say, why I was doing it, why I was so inspired to write these books. And obviously I'm still with them, and they've been amazingly supportive of sort of helping me write books which all kind of feature around the brain. Didn't mean to them all have a brain link, but they all have a brain link. And I was just incredibly lucky. I think right time, right place. I think the hardest thing with doing this process is it requires a lot of putting yourself out there. And I have got other neurodiverse authors who I'm friendly with who have been through the long process of sending out work and getting rejection after rejection, which is incredibly difficult when, as again, ADHD as neurodiverse folk tend to suffer from RSD, rejection sensitivity. And so it's really difficult going in, and even when you're in the door, you still sit there and go, but do they still like me? Am I doing enough? Am I working enough? Do I deserve to be here? Because I feel like, I've just plonked myself in here. And as my friend said, a place which takes some people like 5, 10, 20 years to get into. Should I be here? All of those things start going around your head again of like, oh, it's a fluke and now I've got to keep going, and oh, maybe I can't write really, and it was just this one thing. And
I
but
understand.
I've been really lucky with Madeline Milburn as the agency. They've been really encouraging. We've had a few sit downs where I've been at one time like going, am I pigeonholing myself? That's the other thing I worry about. I don't want to just talk for all neurodivergent people. I get sometimes really worried, and they have to sometimes sort of say to me to calm down and like stop overthinking it. You're doing a good job, and the fact that you sit there and panic constantly shows that you do care. It's so important to me that all this is done properly and inclusive. It doesn't feel like it's just kids, and having adults celebrated. It's important for me to bring that link in so kids could see people, but as I say, not role models. I always say I shouldn't say I don't like the word role model, because I think that we can have people who inspire us to want to be better people. It was my eldest daughter who once had a project saying that she came home with homework, and said, choose a role model who you want to grow up to be. And she was so angry at the homework. She's autistic. And she was like, I don't want this. I'm not gonna do the homework. And I said, well, why not? Like, oh, maybe I was doing typical mums do, like, maybe it could be me, it could be someone else. And she just was like, no, because I don't want to grow up to be anyone else, because otherwise I'll be like everyone else and I won't grow up to be me. I need to grow up to be me. And that since then has totally ruined the word role model for me because I'm like,
Amazing.
I agree with her. I think you
Yeah.
need to be your own role model. You need to base yourself and who you want to be on what is important, what your values are, not everyone else's or that person's amazing. I'm going to grow up to be like them, because you're not. Again, go back to what wired brains. We're not ever going to be, but we can inspire and do things. So yeah, I'm always really careful with, yeah, I don't say role models anymore.
Well, no, you can see how insightful she is. And, the autistic brain is just so brilliant because she just saw that and was like, no, not doing that. That's not for me. I'm going to do it my way. And that is how, our generation were conditioned from the generation before where um, doing anything different was deemed dangerous. And you always had to sort of stick to what we knew and never, sort of always stick to conformities, never break out. And now we're seeing this generation below us, our children, who are celebrating different, who are happy to stand out from the crowd and stand up for what they believe in. And it's for us, it's inspiring because we can learn from our children. But I genuinely believe that this book is a book where you can sit down with many different generations and really understand and really pick what resonates and learn things that we didn't know about. And it's so accessible, so fun, imaginative. And I've got kids who potentially, if I gave them a book with lots of words with no pictures, they would just not even bother. But with this, it feels sort of quite enticing and like, okay, I can read a couple of pages over breakfast, or okay, I'll read a couple of pages while I'm having dinner or whatever. So I will make sure that all the links go to the book on the show notes. I'm intrigued to know, have you got any other books? I'm sure that is there more ideas bubbling under the surface.
Yeah, and I'm still doing brain linked books, even though I went for a stage of worrying that that was my thing. But it's what I'm passionate about. It's what I really believe in. So there are some things in the pipelines out there in the world at the moment in various people's hands. Hopefully they pick them up. So I can't say anything
Can't
more
say
because
anything.
I mean, I can hope. I have hope that I can continue doing what I do. And I hope that people see that I am passionate about this. And, I just want to make it easier and safer for kids to talk about these things and their feelings, and to just see it sort of displayed in different ways. Because, again, sorry, go back to the memory book. Yes, there are lots of lovely books out there which cover dementia, but there's always going to be a story which speaks directly to someone, and it's more relevant to their experiences, if that makes sense. And again, in that book I put a whole chapter in the back about how to actually talk to children about dementia and what it is, and how to get help. I think there's always space for more books that talk about neurodivergence, and I hope that the majority of them are written by people who have experienced it. I think it's incredibly important. We have experts who I guess, study it, but I always feel that we can see those books, if you know what I mean. There's some of the books we've read before, which are just facts and figures and block text, and they're very like heavy. I think sometimes you need someone who wants to find the pride and the celebration, and wants to break through that stigma. Um, Again, I say with the fire underneath them, to be like, no, let's change this up. So hopefully, I'm going to write some more, and hopefully there are other people inspired to do it, because I think there's always space for, yeah, more books like this in the world.
Yeah, I agree. And lastly, can I ask, I can see, now you've had your diagnosis, you've written these amazing books, you maybe have found that kind of that thing that you were looking for. Do you feel, how do you feel in yourself now that you're starting to understand your brain better? Like, do you feel that you have things under control, or there's still struggles for you?
I never have anything under control. Sorry. I'm just going to be.
Because that's so important for people to know, that they're sort of hearing this, and you've got an agent, you've written books, and you know all of this, but actually it's still a daily kind of challenge, isn't it?
Am I doing enough? Am I saying the right things? Am I speaking to the right people? Am I going to be like the one hit wonder? And that's it, I disappear. There's all of these anxieties, and what comes next, or should I be studying more? Should I be doing things more? Should I be backing up a lot of my work with, should I be now going to university and getting a degree in all of these things? And actually, I have to sometimes give myself a bit of grace and patience. That's the big thing. And I have an amazing sister who occasionally I go to, and she just goes, calm down, let's look at what's happened today. And yes, something crap's happened maybe today, but let's look at what you did survive and what you did go through, and the sun was shining. And I think that is amazing for me to have someone out there who occasionally just goes, just breathe, you're fine. But I still haven't got things together. I mean, I've just moved back to England 2 weeks ago. I'm in the middle of just chaos, and that's my life. It's chaos, and would I change it sometimes for a quieter life, but also no, because I think I'd probably get quite bored without the chaos. If that makes sense.
Absolutely,
absolutely. We have to learn to. That's part of our brain and our life, and we can learn to resent it and hate it, or we can just laugh at all the obstacles it throws at us if we can. I understand. I've been in dark places too, so I do understand it's sometimes difficult just to hear someone say that when you're not feeling that. But as soon as we can kind of find the humor, and find the positives that we are putting out in the world. And if you've not found that path yet, maybe it's you're not, finding your thing yet, as you said earlier. But I think once we have the opportunity to work with our energy and to find our positives of what we are putting out there, it's easier to give ourselves a bit more patience and grace with who we are. But not using that energy as a negative source and put yourself down. Because even if the one thing you did today was pick up a piece of litter on the street, well, good for you. That's amazing. And you've done something which might look like nothing, but actually sure has a rolling on effect. I think people need to, give themselves a bit more kindness. So, but I'm just, again, live ADHD, go off on a million tangents.
I just think, no, you know what? I genuinely believe that these conversations, these honest conversations where we talk about the vulnerabilities, we talk about the successes and the strengths, but we also recognize that it's an ebb and flow, and we have the good stuff, but the stuff that's not so easy is challenging. And the fact that, you're openly admitting there's this imposter syndrome and anxiety, and, externally people may be sort of seeing you as this celebrated published author, but actually just very finely beneath the surface there's all these worries and imposter syndrome. And I think it's just important that people know that you can have the success, but there's always going to be the other stuff behind it. But I've loved this conversation, Louise, and I just wanted to thank you for your insight. Thank you for sharing all about the book, and I will make sure that people know how to get hold of the book, and it all goes on the show notes. And I look forward to reading your next book, which hopefully when you get that deal, let me know, and you'll come back. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did and it resonated with you, I would absolutely love it if you could share on your platforms, or maybe leave a review and a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please do check out my website, adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk, for lots of free resources and paid for workshops. I'm uploading new things all the time, and I would absolutely love to see you there. Take care, and see you for the next episode.